Good evening, everybody. In answer to the question of what do you talk about on D&Q Football when there is basically no international football going on, and you don't want all of your videos to be spotlight videos, well, this is your answer. It is, this month, the 2022 AFF U23 Youth Championship that's taking place from Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, through to the 26th in Phnom Penh in Cambodia. Ryan, are you excited for this tournament?
I don't think I've ever been more excited for a tournament in my life. Now, as soon as I found out that the AFF U23 Championship was returning this February, I put that straight in my diary because that is the tournament for me. No, look, mate, we'll digress and we'll talk about this tournament in some detail. But you hit the nail on the head with the opening sentence of, so what do you talk about on a YouTube channel that talks about international football during a month where there is very little international football? So we've somehow found this tournament, the AFF U23 Championship, and we're going to talk about it a little bit today, aren't we? And how am I feeling about this tournament? Slightly underprepared, slightly in the dark, but hey, there's some cool teams and some cool minnow nations, and some under-23s teams that, despite the fact that they're under-23s, typically they're kind of the actual men's national team, is made up a lot of the under-23s players that will be playing in this tournament. So look, there are some points and there'll be some interesting factors and some things to watch, and there'll be some takeaways from the tournament. It won't just be kind of, well, it is a youth tournament, but it's not something that will just be kind of totally, we'll have no say on kind of like the men's international stage, for example. We'll get to see some players that will represent their men's national team and their minnows. So look, we're going to keep tabs on it, aren't we?
We are,
How do you feel about it, mate?
I feel pretty optimistic about it, actually. I think, given the background of the AFF Suzuki Cup, which we covered previously on the channel, like you say, we do know a little bit about some of these teams, which we'll get onto very, very shortly. Because, like you say, the brilliant thing about this is a lot of these players, they are under-23s, but they represent both the national team and the under-23s. They don't have the plethora of players like certainly England and other European sides do, where the under-23s team is basically people you've never really heard of, because all the good players have got into the first team. It is a real mix, and I'm expecting to see some players who performed well, but maybe not amazingly at the Suzuki Cup, probably kick on because they now are up against other players of the same sort of age band. So just to run through the kind of format of this tournament very quickly, there are 11 teams competing there, all from the ASEAN region. And the only side that didn't enter is Australia, who are technically part of that region, but the sides competing: Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Timor, Vietnam. And we saw all of them compete, apart from Brunei, at the AFF Suzuki Cup. And this is in fact the debut for Brunei at this tournament, the Brunei under-23s at this tournament. And the current holders of the last championship, which took place in 2019, was Indonesia. No real surprises there, given the age of the team, Ryan, that we saw in the AFF Suzuki Cup, a very young side that progressed quite far in the tournament.
Yeah. So it doesn't surprise you at all. It was interesting, so they were the champions in 2019. But it's quite funny. So in kind of research for this tournament, I'm sure you were probably looking at this as well. This is literally only the third iteration of the tournament. There was, now I might have this wrong actually, so it wasn't there a tournament in 2005.
Yep.
Then there was meant to be another edition of the tournament in 2011 that was cancelled. And then in 2019, it resurfaced again. And now we have it, 3 years. So it seems to be the most sporadic of youth championships. And the two previous winners of the two tournaments we've had so far, Indonesia and Thailand. Yeah. Kind of like the fact they've branched out to 11. Typically, it's been 8 teams for the 2 iterations before. I mean, not that that's actually a huge amount to go off, is it? But basically, from my point of view, it's cool that Brunei and Timor are in it. It was, you said, so it's hosted, you've touched on this, but it's hosted in Cambodia, the same place as it was in the 2019 tournament, I believe. games are played at the National Football Stadium, the Morodok Techno National Stadium, which is one of my favourite named stadiums because of the word techno.
Yes, yeah, it's good.
The format. Do you want to touch on the format of it all and
Yeah.
kind of how it all?
Absolutely. So there's 3 groups. 11 is of course an awkward number. There's different ways of dealing with it, but they've done with a 4-4-3 group stages game. Each team plays the others once, similar to a World Cup group stage in that regard. Group A, Cambodia, Timor, Philippines, Brunei. Group B, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Laos. And Group C is a very strong one with Thailand, Vietnam and Singapore. And every top team goes through, and then one of the second place teams will go through. It's a bit of a strange one, and I'm not 100% sure how it works because it's done on points in terms of who gets through in second place. I'm not sure how that works with Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, because they will play one game less than the other teams. So to be honest, I'm not certain how that works. But then there will be 4 teams. They will go into semi-finals and finals, and then of course the third place playoff as well, with the final taking place on the 26th of February at the Morodok Techno. And I mean, you look at it, and I think one of the best things really about this tournament, certainly from a DNQ side, I know it's only youth football, but it's great that Timor and Brunei have drawn each other in the same group, and a group with Cambodia as well, who aren't the strongest side in the world, because Philippines will probably win that group, right? They're the biggest team by a country mile, and they will certainly be disappointed if they don't win every game in that group. Cambodia probably the only side that's going to test them, but Timor, who we've seen predominantly under 23s, makes up their national team. They were really exciting at the AFF, one of their best performances, despite of course losing every game, and it'll be interesting to see. But they were, you know, a 2-0 defeat for them is a really good result, and they threatened to score. It's a shame they didn't. But I think that Timor will be one of the surprise packages in this tournament. I hope so anyway. And to be honest, what is a surprise package for Timor-Leste? Well, it's winning a game. And they've got a real chance to do that against probably Brunei. But it's a good group as well. Group B, slightly unpassionate in my opinion. Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Laos, probably going to be in that order come the end of it as well. Of course, these sides that are played each other already in the AFF. So, yes, there'll be some exciting under-23s talent. But that one probably the less passionate one. And then Group C is sort of the big boys all together. Thailand, of course, previous winners. Vietnam, one of the best sides in that region. And Singapore as well, no slouches. So Group C, probably the one to watch if you want high quality, you know, real... that's almost like a round of... a quarter-final type group. But from our point of view, well, from my point of view anyway, I'm wearing the Timor-Leste goalkeeper strip, and I would love to see. Yeah, nice. I'd love to see them do well this tournament. That's probably one side I'd pick out that I want to see do well.
Yeah, me too, mate. Brunei and Timor actually. Yeah. Now, this tournament, let's be honest, mate. Really cool tournament. But if this was during a month that had other international football, would we really? I guess kind of monitor it. Would we do a video on it? We probably wouldn't, would we? It's an under-23 championship, despite the fact that it does include some minnow nations. Now, Brunei and Timor will be really, really interesting. And I have to say, I quite like the fact that you've donned that Timor shirt tonight, mate, because they're probably the team that I'll kind of be following the results for, because I know that, you know, a fair chunk of the players that are representing them will have been representing them in the Suzuki Cup not so long ago. You know, they've only got a few players that are over the age of 23, but over the age of 25, 26, you know. So I would imagine a fair bit of that squad will be the same. So they had a couple of, you know, some heavier defeats, didn't they, in that Suzuki Cup campaign? But they did themselves proud. And if it is kind of that core group that's coming again in an under-23s environment, maybe they can get a good result or two, mate. I think the other groups and the other teams, I kind of expect the larger nations, or kind of the nations that traditionally do better in these sort of tournaments, to continue to do the same again. Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Philippines, and Singapore. But for us, you know, the vast majority, the majority of these nations are what we like to call those minnow nations. But you know, we've got more of a focus on the Brunei's and Timors, haven't we? And Laos in particular, maybe as well, mate. So yeah, kind of hit the nail on the head there with with kind of those teams that we'll be keeping tabs on.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we'll be looking in this tournament as well at some individuals because traditionally, particularly sides like Vietnam, they're a real, certainly the first level is a real squad. There aren't that many top class players that pick up the ball, dribble past everyone and score. Thailand have got a few individuals that you pick out, but I think what I'd like to see in this tournament is some real young gems that just set the tournament alight. It's a real opportunity for some of those young players to kind of take it by the scruff of the neck. So we'll be following the real minnows in this tournament. The side's not fancied at all, but I'll also be keeping an eye out for some players that have impressed me and players to perhaps watch out for in the next AFF Suzuki Cup, whenever that is held due to COVID, etc., delays and stuff. But listen, that is all from us. If you are from any of these countries that is competing, how important is this tournament? Because obviously to people outside of this region, we just don't know. What do you look for as a fan of one of these nations in this tournament? Are you glad that it's back for just its third iteration? And who do you think will win? Drop a like on this video, drop a comment, don't forget to subscribe, check us out on Instagram, Twitter and everything else. And all that's left to say is thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.